the October 17th meeting of the Strathroy-Caradoc Police Services Board. We want to welcome, we have a guest presenter today, Mr. Mike Holt, who will list here in a few moments. But first, we'd like to start off with item number 1, which is roll call. And last time, were we all present?
Yes.
Well, that's fantastic. I always like good attendance. Number 2, we have the call to order and the approved agenda. The recommendation is that, there's a minor change here, that the October 17th, 2023 Police Services Board agenda be amended to include a revised 2023 budget update report. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by the mayor, seconded by member Hall. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Thank you. And now we move on to the second recommendation, that the October 17th, 2023 Police Services Board meeting agenda be approved as amended. Looking for a mover and a seconder. Member Wiersma, member Hahn. All those in favor? Approved. Thank you. Number 3, declaration of pecuniary interest. Do we have any here this morning? Seeing none, we'll proceed to number 4, presentations. And item 4.1, okay, we have Michael from A+ Link Architecture Incorporated to provide an overview of the police station expansion. And I wondered, does the chief wish to introduce this before we have Mr. Holt's presentation?
Sure, thank you, Chair. So this is an item that was brought to the board's attention, I think 2 or 3 meetings ago, regarding just some of the challenges we have with our current building located over on Francis Street. There was some direction given through the board to myself to start to explore some of the issues related to the possibility of moving to a building annex. Mr. Holt and A-Link, I think as certainly members of council who are on the board are aware, have a relationship already with the municipality. So through Rob Littleborn, the director of rec, who really sort of carries that portfolio at the municipal level, we had an introduction to Mr. Holt, and since that we've had a couple of meetings, I would say, to sort of progress down the path of some exploratory talks, some building analysis. And so I thought it was prudent that we invite Mr. Holt to the board to provide an update on where we are so far in our journey exploring a building annex to our existing property at 299 Francis. So with that, Mike, I will, to be less formal, if that's okay.
That's fine. Informal is fine. I like informal. Thank you very much for having me and sharing the work that we've done so far to date. It's a work in progress, but hopefully everyone can see that online, the presentation. So what I'll do is I'll take you through where we started and where we are now. We're still very much in schematic design, and we'll be getting into costing. So through the agreement we have with the municipality, it's a 5-year contract with the municipality of Strathroy-Caradoc. A part of that, myself being project architect and partner at the firm, we have engineering teams under us, consultants, so structural, mechanical, electrical, and we bring them into projects as we deem needed. Still, it's very early stages right now, but a part of that, we also have a cost consultant as well, and so we have milestones set up for costing. So the end milestone of schematic design is a Class C costing, which will give us basically a high-level idea of cost, construction costs, plus schedule, plus the scope. So what are we actually even doing? Like, what are we building? What's the addition? And that helps inform decision-making, helps inform budgeting, and then decisions can be made to proceed or amend the design a little bit, for various reasons, and then keep the process moving depending on your schedule. So I'll cut through here to the next slide. So just a quick overview actually of A-Link. I didn't include the slide on it, but we have extensive experience doing police work, institutional work, corrections. We do a lot of the work at the Ontario Police College, among many other police stations around London area. We're also working on the fire station right now for the municipality. So that tender is coming up very soon in November. Actually issuing for a permit tomorrow. So we're well breathed in working with the city. The overview for today we're looking at is the scope. So the what, like what are we actually planning on doing? As I mentioned, it's an addition and a renovation to the existing facility. We're going to look at the challenges and opportunities of the project, as always, and then we'll start looking at the site plan, the floor plan concepts, which are becoming quite developed. We've had about 5 meetings now, so it's the plan's getting there. And then we're going to look at next steps, as always, because it's a continuation. Design's always continuing. So next slide. So I'll zoom in on just so everyone can read it, because the slide it's small. So this kind of leads into the what, and it'll make more sense once we look at the floor plan. These are the newer spaces, some of them being in the addition itself, and some of them being renovated spaces in the existing floor plate. One of the main moves is shifting the 911 communications center, that hub, to the addition and making it larger. Also, your IT room, you'll see, is very cramped. I didn't provide any photos, but I'm sure Chief could take you over there and you can see how poor that space is. So a dedicated purpose-built IT room, a comms room as well, which is adjacent to the antenna on the north side of the building, an officer work area for reporting, so it's kind of like a flex space, I guess you could call it. So come in, get your work done, move on. Equipment room adjacent to the indoor parking area, which we'll kind of speak about adjacencies. There's a sergeant office as well, which is adjacent to the indoor parking. A training room, which is a flex room, could be used for meetings, could be used for training, could be used for potentially other municipal needs, depending on how that works with the police services. Obviously, washrooms and support spaces are going to be needed anytime you're looking at adding square footage. A larger women's locker room, and then a part of that is taking the existing women's locker room and turning that into a men's, so making the men's larger, but also making a new women's, and you'll see that on the floor plate. A new identification lab, so the lab that you have right now is very, very small. It's kind of sporadic throughout the existing floor plate, so making a purpose-built ID space. Secure evidence storage, so more storage for evidence, and kind of piecing those out between the renovated spaces and the addition. A mental health office, which is a dual purpose office as well, and that's actually in the renovated area where we're taking over the existing ID space and turning it into the mental health office. A lunchroom. And by making a new lunchroom, the fitness room can now absorb the existing lunchroom and become larger. This will all make sense once you look at the floor plan. I'll take you through that. And then indoor parking for police vehicles are sort of the main highlights. There's a few other ones that might not be on the list, but they'll make more sense once we look at the plan. So here's your existing site plan. Hopefully everyone's familiar with the facility. It's at 299 Francis Street. Good news about the site is quite large. The way the existing building was constructed, which was 1999-ish, around that time, it left, we'll call it, I guess the right side of the screen. So for this purpose, we'll call it the east side of the building, even though the building's kind of on a 45-degree angle. But we'll call this side over here the east side. So on the east side of the building, you have green space, open space for an addition. So it actually works out quite nicely. It was set up with potentially additions in mind, which is great. It's not always the case with buildings. You can see as well the parking, the way it works with the facility is basically an O around the building. So you have your drop off, you have your barrier-free parking, your public entrance on the west side, and then you have your street access. And then right now you can even see they've teed these intersections to almost indicate a future growth. And if you look at the old site plan drawings, they actually indicated that as a future direction for parking. And that sets up perfectly for us in the addition. There's also a storage building right now and a sea can, so the container on the east side. I'll zoom in on it so we can see it. those would be removed, that type of storage. Seems kind of redundant, and there's other ways that we could do that in the new build. On the north side of the building, there's the existing antenna and the comm shed, which is located over here. We would not be moving those. The backup generator as well, we would not be touching. You'll see how we're going to connect the addition and the renovation to the building. The other aspect of this is the secure prisoner drop-off, which is currently on the back side of the building, so the east side. The way it works right now is the way this double arrow represents is they're backing in, dropping off within this sealed zone, adjacent to the cells and the ID area, and basically this is your secure point here for prisoners. This at one point this probably was designed as a drive-through because on the south side there is an overhead door and there's an interior overhead door where you could drive through. Currently, that's really not being used. This is more of a storage, like a holdover space. And some of the ID processing equipment is actually in the storage room as well, which is adjacent to the existing evidence storage, which is this box over here. Other elements that we are going to be looking at, there's the fitness room and the lunchroom, as I mentioned, in the middle core of the space. So you'll see how those get addressed. The locker room, as I mentioned, so a very small women's locker room comparatively to the men's. So we're looking at creating a larger men's and a new, basically equivalent size women's locker room in the addition. The IT room is right in the middle. It has these double doors, and it's very, very tight. A lot of equipment goes in there. And I mean, 1999, maybe there wasn't the foresight when it was built, right, for the future tech that could happen. Now it kind of takes over our lives and our spaces. So very undersized in the core of the building. That is going to be shifted over. As I mentioned, there's the ID Lab 116. That space is going to move over. It's very, very small. You can't even fit all the processing equipment in there. As I mentioned, some of that's in that storage room. So the ability is to get all that in one space and then use this space, because it's a room with the door, as that mental health office. The communications center is currently located right here. I believe it has 3 desks or maybe 4 desks right now. The idea is to get it up to 5, so then you have ability to expand. The space is very, very tight. The desks take up a lot of space. So if you ever visit the site, you'll know. So that's one of the key elements of that moving over. This then becomes a potential space for a boardroom or just another meeting space. Because again, the space exists. There's doors. It's a very simple reno to turn that space into something else. Currently, the reporting room right here, this is where the officers are doing their work and their paperwork. It's very tight. I don't show all the desks in here, but it's very tight with the clerk. It could be probably pretty noisy and disruptive as well. It really makes sense moving that function over to where they're going to be parking their cars. So there's the functionality of that would be more in alignment with their day-to-day work. At the front corner, there's the admin, so admin office, the chief, deputy chief's office. None of that would be changing. You'll see that on the plan. I actually have color-coded the drawing, so it will make more sense to you guys when we go to the next slides. So challenges and opportunities, as I mentioned, this is a little quick sketch that we put together talking about really the concepts for where things could go on the site. We do have this whole parcel to the north, but really there's no point in building over there. There's more value in keeping it the way it is, or eventually selling it off if you deem so, because you really can fit everything you need onto this site. Currently, you're about 11.7% coverage on the site. Once we add in the addition and the parking area, we're sitting about 28. We're still under the requirements for coverage. I think it's 35 is max. So we're not even maxing out the site for square footage. Everything as well would be slab on grade, so single story. It really doesn't make any sense programmatically to go to multiple stories for the addition. So the public entrance would stay the way it is, at least we conceive it right now. Is totally makes sense. The day-to-day, clerk, protected openings or protected vestibules, people coming in, that really wouldn't change. But because the addition's getting so long, we could look at creating a new staff entrance. As I mentioned, the comms center is going to be in here. A lot of staff could be entering at this point. So it's almost like creating a new side entrance for staff only, or even potential access for the training area, which you'll see on the floor plan. One of the main challenges really with this, because you have the space, which isn't a challenge, that's awesome, is how do we connect this existing, we'll call it east-west corridor, how do we connect that all the way through into the addition? You can see right now it actually dead ends at that doorway, which takes you into this secure prisoner drop-off. The reality is, though, just for day-to-day workflow, you really want to have this corridor straightened out. So you'll look at, or we addressed how to do that in the addition. You'll notice as well, a lot of this kind of back end here gets affected by us putting an addition adjacent to it. So one of the key moves is extend that corridor into the addition, as I mentioned. The programming, so all the space I've sort of spoke of except for the indoor parking is kind of the piece in the middle here, so sandwiched between the two, because a lot of this programming is in direct relationship to your existing facility. So it really doesn't make sense putting all that and putting the parking in the middle, right? That wouldn't make any sense. So just logically, putting parking at the rear with a pull through as well, so you could come in maybe on the north side, exit out the south side, have indoor parking. So this would all be for unmarked vehicles as well as marked vehicles. Keeps everything, within a tempered climate, easy to get out for emergencies. No issues with snow and stuff that we get to deal with in lovely Canada. As well as extending the driveway, as I mentioned, we have the space. It's already set up to do that, so you can see we have that kind of leg sticking out there. It wraps around the building, allows for easy flow around the building. You can get to either exits quickly. And then addressing the secure drop-off as well. It really should remain on the north side, and you'll see how we did that in the addition. So let me just go back to the slide. So, currently this is the design as of last night when I was working on it. And so yellow is the addition, so new build. Green is the major renovated areas, and those are the kind of the tricky spaces. I mean, they're not even that tricky, quite frankly, but they're trickier in that we have a new building against your existing building. So we got to look at snow loading and potentially reinforcing of your existing open web steel joists, like the roof structure, because you have a new building against the existing. We do it all the time in architecture. It's not that complex. But there is a difference between the green spaces and the blue. The blue are the minor renovated areas, so quite frankly, it's like change the sign on the door, paint the room, and it's very minimal amount of work in those rooms. So there's a different cost per square footage when you look at the blue spaces versus the green spaces, which are a little bit more intrusive in their work. Like maybe we're removing a wall, maybe we're infilling, etc. I'll start with the blue spaces because they're really the easiest. And then we'll talk about the stats and kind of going from there. So as I mentioned, the 911 comms is going to move to the addition, so this becomes the boardroom. Adjacent to that is the storage 111. This is actually the armory right now. It's just bizarrely located, kind of way out in the corner of the building. So we're moving this over into a purpose-built equipment room. The radio equipment room is very, very small. So you'll see we have a new comms room, excuse me, in the addition, so in the yellow. This storage room right here, 115, is the duty bag area. So we have duty bags here, we got armory here. So this is long gun storage, if anyone's curious. So really we're gonna create a purpose-built equipment room. So you can grab your gear and go, or come back and put your gear away. And it just will all make sense because it'll all be in alignment with how you would walk through the building. Mental health office would be over here. IT room, potentially some of this will stay, but a lot of it will go into the new. So this may just, if it all goes, we may end up just keeping this as a storage room. It just gets renamed. As I mentioned, the women's locker room turns into the men's locker room. Really the easiest way and the low cost option is just change the sign on the door. That's about it. I mean, you could repaint it if you wanted to. We talked about maybe blowing this wall open and creating like a bigger room. Of course, that can be done. Make a bigger locker room in the middle and have the 2 washrooms over here as they are. But you could also just change the sign of the door and keep the costs down. There's lots of ways to do that. Fitness room in the green space. Really the difference with this one is, so on the left-hand side was the lunchroom. The fitness room is super tight. Once you get all your equipment and machines in there, I don't know how you walk or even work out. So the idea with this is to remove the center wall and the doorway, and then just open up the space, and now you have twice the amount of space that you once had for fitness, and then close off one of the doors into the hallway so you have a single way in. Probably keep the door here, which is out of the lunchroom. It's the exterior door. We could keep it. We could also, get rid of it and just, turn it into a window as well. One of the items as well was potentially a new patio space as well, and really that's just a covered, protected area for people to use when it's nicer weather out, to have lunch or just get out and get a break from being inside the building. One other thing we are addressing in the addition, you'll notice if you walk the corridors there, they're very much of the time they were built. Everything is concrete block and very grid and very tight, so it's a 5'3" corridor right now, which is challenging, I'm sure, for officers to pass each other wearing their gear. They may have to turn to the side. So we're addressing that through the corridors. The corridors are wider in the addition. Getting into the other green spaces here, as I mentioned, we're going to get rid of that door and straighten this corridor out so we can come straight through into our addition. Not impossible to do it, actually quite easy to do that. The challenge with that is it then shortens the secure prisoner drop-off length, I guess I would say. So we need to address that through creating an addition on the outside of the building to make a longer space in here for a vehicle to fit. That's kind of the trade-off in doing the corridor. We looked at turning the corridor down at this point and having it come in this way. It just doesn't make any sense in the long run, and you probably would not like that decision after you live with it for a while. It makes more sense really to keep the corridor straight and make that connection through. Other elements in here, this actually could be blue instead of green. I kind of miscolored it, but really this secure storage area could stay the way it is. It's just relabeling and reconsidering what you're using the space for. We have a new secure storage space because this isn't enough space for you guys to store what you need. So we have a new space in the addition, which I'll get to. This space could be dual purpose, some evidence storage, so maybe drug storage, etc. Still keep your lockers in there as you have now, and then maybe the training supplies. You have other spaces for police purpose storage. I'm actually going to go to the next drawing because I have it in a little bit better detail, and we don't have to look at it with the background on. Here we go. Okay. Yeah, so we have evidence lockers as you come in, trading supplies, and potentially drug storage as well. As you come around here, this was the old storage, we'll call it garage, that had the overhead door on this side and overhead door on this side. The idea is to chop the space up, put in a purpose-built vent room. So this is for the drug ID. Right now, and processing, it's right now contained in this storage room. It really should be in its own room, just for security. And then the rest of the space is actually just a corridor connection down into the new lunchroom, which is an addition. So lunchroom, just for scale, is about the same size as the fitness room. So you're kind of doubling both spaces with this intervention. 8 to 12 people is what it's designed for. Easily, we could probably fit 20 in there, depending on the furniture layout. Really, it's a low, not like what you have right now, so it isn't a big budget kitchen. It's really a kitchenette where we would have a fridge, we would have a water cooler like they have right now, sink, some counter space, some uppers, coffee makers, all that kind of stuff you would need, some counter spaces, which is super important. We did chat about maybe having an island at one point, but to me, it would keep the cost down, and I also have decreased the size of this bread since we last met, so trying to cut back the square footage just based off of the amount of people that are going to be in here. Potential for windows, excuse me, because when you're having lunch, it would be nice to look outside, or even have access to an outside space here, which potentially is fenced off for security and just gives you some privacy and a space to kind of get away and come back inside. Yeah, and lastly is the washroom. Sorry, scroll too far. There's a washroom adjacent as well to the lunchroom, so single-use unisex washroom. It makes sense to have that close by. As I mentioned, the secure drop-off prisoner area, we need to enlarge that for the length of the vehicles. I'm showing a 14-foot wide door by 12-foot high, which is, you could fit quite large vehicles in that size. So depending on what vehicle is coming in here, it would easily fit. The reason why we have to bump this out so far is we have to get a man door or a single-use door out. You can't just exit out an overhead door. It's not allowable. So we have to get a door in here. That's why this bumps out so far, hence enlarging this a little bit more. This would be a secure exit door as well, not unlike what you have right now. So really it's the same action, day-to-day action for the drop-off. It really doesn't change. It's on the same side of the building. It's actually just creating a larger drop-off space for you. So that's kind of the middle spaces, we'll call them, the renovated spaces. Oh, I've now stopped working. Interesting, okay. I'll do it this way instead. So continuing on, we have a corridor connection into the existing. So as you come past the corridor, you're actually bypassing the women's locker room. So it's on the same side as the men's locker room, and actually sandwiches the fitness room and the lunchroom between each other. So there's a nice kind of symmetry there, and also just functionality. Not unlike what you have in the men's locker room, it's pretty similar, where we would have a secure, not secure, but a visibly private walkway as you walk through, so you can't see inside once the door is open. We just need that for OBC. And then lockers, benches. We have space right now for 20 lockers, as well as bench seating. 3 water closets, 3 vanities or 3 sinks, 2 showers at the back end here. So this is kind of the 3 levels of locker rooms. So entry, locker space, wet spaces. It's just how those are laid out. So that's that corridor there. We really, when we designed the addition, it really made sense, just because again, your site kind of dictates what you can do, is to create basically 4 quadrants. So we have the east-west connection that we want to make for sure into your existing, and there's definitely a north-south connection as well, as I mentioned on that previous slide, by having a staff entrance, and then having obviously an exit. Like we have to be able to get out of the building for emergencies, to really turn into this kind of T or cross intersection in the building, and then creating these 4 quadrants. So quadrant 1 is kind of the wet quadrant, we'll call it, where the women's locker rooms live, as well as washrooms. So if we envision the south end here, the vestibule being the staff entrance, it's adjacent to the training room. So it's about 59 people. It's 59 because we don't have a second exit out of the room, but we could fit lots of people here. If we wanted to have more than 60 in here, I would just put an exit door in that corner there, and then we would be covered. Inside the training room itself, lots of space, potentially closet space for specific programming storage, depending on what training is happening in here. So it can kind of live right in where you need to do the training. Potentially extra one for tables and chair storage, as well as if we needed it, a millwork cabinet with a sink. So if you ever needed to have water or food service in here, it has a spot to live. As you come into the vestibule, you're met with a secure lobby, so there's multiple layers of security to get into the building. If you imagine that this line right here, this is kind of public, really don't get past that line ever. So depending on how you program the training room, we could set up the security point here across that line and down. So as you come into the lobby, you do have access to a barrier-free washroom, which you definitely want to have on this side of the building, as well as a single-use washroom. So 2 washrooms for the amount of people that are going to be in the training room. It meets all OBC code requirements. And both of them would be genderless washrooms, so it just keeps it very flexible and easy. As you come through, we actually have a couple washrooms. These washrooms are envisioned for the officers and the staff working in the facility, not public washrooms. We put them here because we have all the water and the sanitary and all the connections happening in this side of the building, so it makes sense to put them there. It also makes sense based off of how potentially these functions are going to work as people come and go out of the garage. So I'll kind of speak to that, and then we'll work back into the middle. So as I mentioned, we have an indoor parking garage on the far east side of the building. The doors are, for some reason, turned off, or the arrows are turned off, but you would come in through this overhead door on the north, and you would exit out of the overhead door on the south. Obviously, if one of them is broken, you could come in and out on either one. We have to have 2 exits, so door exits out of the facility or out of the garage itself. But it's basically a secure garage. You could have fob access. It's very straightforward to do that with the technology that's available. 17 parking spaces total, so fully covered, fully climate controlled, no snow issues. And then this one here is reserved as kind of the spot where you could come in and get to the door to come into the facility. Fob in, tap in. So as soon as you come in, you're walking right past the shared sergeant office. So it's, from my understanding, it's shared between 4 officers or sergeants. So we have lockers for each of them for their own stuff, and then you have basically a shared office in here. Space as well for some small meetings as well, and some glass and visibility so you can see people coming and going out of the parking area. As you come in, you bypass or come through the equipment area, and I'll zoom in on this, because this kind of takes a whole bunch of elements that you have scattered throughout your existing facility and puts them all in one spot, purposely built. So you come in, you have your gun discharge area immediately. So I know you only have 1 right now. I'm showing 2. It's purely just for scale. So you discharge there, also test your taser as well. You have your long gun armory cabinets here. So doubling what you have right now in space. Potentially wall space along here for charging of radios. So you can imagine they could all be pre-hung. You just grab, go. Duty bag storage, so open shelving here for your duty bags, which were currently like in a closet. Now they're right here. And then some millwork countertop with some uppers, so potentially tasers as well as also other radios and other storage here. So you're kind of coming in, dropping off all your stuff, and then coming out. No doors, very easy to get in and out. You're not going to get hit by anyone coming in and out if you're out, running out in a pinch. And vice versa, you need to grab your stuff. You grab your stuff. Last thing you grab is the long guns, and then you're out the door. Very easy flow, very, very accessible to the vehicles. As you do all that, now you have the work area as well. So it's just a big open work area, flex space as I mentioned. Easily we could fit 6 to 8 people. It really just depends on desk layout, but you can see for scale. I like to put furniture in here so you can kind of imagine how big the space really is. So typical workstation with a computer and a work table. Come in, do your paperwork, and then you're kind of off on the rest of your day. So everything is very much contained in this quadrant here as you come in, and now you're back at the center as well, and obviously adjacent to the washrooms if you need to have access to those prior to running out the door, or vice versa. The rest of this upper, we'll call it upper right quadrant, above the equipment room is the comms room. So there's something very nice about the comms room right now, just that you have in that it faces north, so you're getting this really nice north light. North light is usually the best light that we like to deal with because it doesn't have glare, but you get just the natural light itself, but not sunlight. So it really made sense to put the comms center here. It's definitely one of the heart pieces of your facility. So we just finished the 911 comms backup center for City of London, and so these are the desks that we use there. So I put them in again for scale, just so we could have a chat about it. These are the Bravik desks. So what we're going to have is 4 desks, and they have a very specific spacing as well. That's why I have dimensions on here, just if you're curious. As well as we have a desk here for the supervisor. So basically 5 desks total. Supervisor also has their own office, so if they ever need to do interviews or meetings, they also have a smaller office here off to the side. Again, glass and visibility so you can see out. I assume that person's running back and forth constantly, helping out. Lots of wall space on the left and right side for TVs. Again, if you go into your existing or any 911 comms facility, there's lots of wall space needed for all the amount of monitors and TVs. So lots of space for that, as well as space for new file cabinets and all that we need. We actually have a little bit of leftover space here, so I just put in a table and chair, which definitely if you wanted to have that furniture, you could. But potentially this space could grow into 6, the grand scheme of things. So it's not designed for the minimums, it's designed for potentially if you ever need to increase service, the ability is there and you could fit it. You don't have to do another reno or addition. As well as what we've added in here is a mini fridge, some countertop space here for like resources, paper, pens, all that kind of stuff. They have a printer right now, a printer copier in their space, and just kind of sticks out in the space. So we've created this little niche here where you can, or a nook where you can fit everything in there. It doesn't feel like you're gonna hit it. But it's also easily accessible and central to everyone working in there. Lots of space as well for file cabinets. As I mentioned, windows facing north, so you get nice north light outside. In between the two spaces is the IT room. So this space is like 2 to 3 times larger than your existing IT space. We would need to work with the IT team to figure out what exactly the equipment is going to be in the space. I put in 2 typical server racks for scale. There's lots of ways to lay this out. Do we need a workstation in there, like a computer for the IT department to work from? I don't think you have an IT department right now for the police itself. So, but we've allocated space, definitely needs to be central, definitely needs to be secure so it's not an exterior wall. And a lot of these doors would have fob access as well for control. Kind of getting to the end here, vestibule on the north side for exiting, purely that's what it's for. You'll notice, I'll go back to the site plan, we don't have any new parking on this side of the building, but we definitely need this for exiting. Last quadrant, we'll call it, so if we go back to the middle, is the ID lab. So the ID lab is located here, it's away from windows, so again, it's nice and secure and just controllable. Very close to the ventilation, which is separate over here, very close to the evidence storage over there, as well as the new evidence storage over here, so it's kind of between the two. We have the evidence ID lockers right now, which are inset into the corridor, and where you have those right now, they're just sitting outside here. They're just kind of sitting right about there. So really, because a lot of this action now is happening on this side of the building, we would just move those over. Inset them in so you're not hitting yourself on a locker. And then the ID or tech can come out, grab what they need, and do their work. We need more input on what exactly is fitting in here besides a few of the equipment which I've measured, but that's kind of next steps. We have the evidence storage as well here. This is not unlike what you have currently, so you're basically doubling the size of your evidence lab. It could be divided up in many, many ways. This is really just a starting point. But you have your kind of central area where you come in, property storage, firearm storage, other evidence, lots of space in here to work with. And then lastly, at the north side, on an exterior wall, because it makes sense to have these on exterior walls, is the M&E room, so mechanical electrical room, as well as the comms room. And this is doubly secure because you have to get into the M&E room to get into the comms room. And the M&E room may have a service person go in there. But the comms room, you definitely don't want to have someone fixing a water heater have to go into your comms room. So that's why they're located that way. So zooming out a bit, I will go back to my site plan because there's a couple site items and there's some stats that I just want to throw at you, and then I can open it up to questions. So one thing we have added is, because of that staff entrance, we've added potentially 20 new parking spaces on this side of the building. You'll notice it's very tight right now on the existing parking. So currently parking is 33 spaces. We would be upping it to about 50. And you can imagine a lot of the staff that are kind of working in this zone now could park here, walk in, and a lot of these can now be reserved for public coming in. These still would be the main public spaces. Maybe the admin still is parking down here because that's where the admin is entering at the building there. So logically, we're just kind of scouring the parking where it's needed. Other things we're looking at doing is connecting around the building with some sidewalks and curbs, which you don't have currently. It just makes sense, especially with this staff entrance, so potentially adding a new sidewalk which connects into that, which basically just dead ends at the driveway. Connecting that across, allowing people to walk outside, get into each piece of the facility. Obviously all these exits have to exit out onto something hard, and same with this side as well. We are looking at, because we're creating this ring road, if you will, or this driveway around the facility. Your old garbage used to sit right over here. It now has to be moved over there. It's definitely doable. And then for the stolen bike storage, right now it's currently in a shipping container. We have space to put that kind of at the back side if needed. So again, just for scale, I put it on the drawing, so that's outside of the building. So stats, how big is this? So your existing building is about 1,100 square feet. I'll zoom in, zoom in, zoom in. Sorry, I'm using my keyboard now, not my mouse. Sorry, 11,000, what did I say? It's definitely not 1,100. Sorry, I can't read. It was a long night. New building basically doubles that, it's 15, but you gotta look at it in the two pieces. So we have the addition itself, which is the program space in the middle, so 9,000, and then the garage area of the indoor parking adds about 6. So that's the difference there. So total, you're looking at 26 total. I have broken up the areas as well into each of the pieces, because as I mentioned, each of these would have their own square footage costs. They're not all equal. And when we go out for costing, this is exactly how I would lay the drawing out, because then the cost consultant can see and understand where the work is happening, and then they can propose the cost based off of the work that's happening on the site. So that's the breakdown there of the areas of work. So the addition itself is 15, but we have about 1,100 and 1,700, give or take, in the kind of renovated areas. Coverage, as I mentioned, we're well under the 35 required, or max required. We're at 28, and we have 53 parking spaces proposed versus your existing 33. Let me just go through the last couple slides here. So this is the schematic design as we are right now. We're working now getting this into 3 dimensions. So the next elements, besides reviewing the plans with Chief, because this is all new to him as of, I worked on it last night, so, we want to look it over with the team, get the input, make sure the plan is still where we want it to be. Do we need to find some efficiencies? Do we need to cut back on some square footage prior to going up for costing? But prior to that, elements that are on my plate right now are to take this into 3D, because we have your existing building. This is our 3D model that we've already created. You can see the yellow there is the extrapolated mass for the addition. The addition itself, we don't envision it being too much larger at all than your existing, mainly because of snow loading. The bigger our object is next to your building, the higher the snow load drifts are onto your existing, which is not, it's not structured for that capacity. And also doesn't make any sense, right? Because we're all single floor, we're not doing multi-story. So really it's going to be about the same line alignment as your existing mass. Even with the indoor parking, you don't need to have a huge space to do that. We are doing that as a single frame, in that it will not have any posts in the indoor parking, so no posts to hit, which is always good. And it's definitely doable because it's just an aisle and 2 parking stalls. So that's next steps, is really to get the exterior up, to figure out what the assemblies are going to be, which we already have a good indication. It's the post-disaster building. It's concrete block structure. It's very durable. Obviously, it has to meet all security requirements, impact resistance, all that kind of stuff. So not something we haven't done before, but it's getting those onto paper so then the cost consultant knows the level of cost they need to associate with the build. And then the goal of that is to finish this all up by the end of the month, which is already the 17th. And then get that out for costing in November, the month of November, to the cost consultant. So that's the next steps. That's a lot of information, I know. I'll open up to questions if you want, or...
Yeah, well, thank you for that deep dive, and I think you've anticipated many questions, but it is exciting to see a building which I consider to be a new building, but I'm showing my age. But hopefully something like this will see us through to 2050 or 2060. And I think that would be it. So at this point, I'll throw the floor open to board members for any questions for Mr. Holt. Mayor?
Well, you may be able to answer this question, Chair. When was the current building built?
Was it 98 or 99?
If I may, Chair, sorry, I was going to pipe in some background information. Yeah. So the building was constructed in 1998. We took occupancy in May of 99. At the time, the design, I think, originally was built for 26 members. At the time, I think when we moved in, we were exceeding that number already. And that doesn't really, that original 26 number, I don't think included or captured the number of civilian staff that we also had on staff. I know Mike's done a good job sort of illustrating the design of the building. It is a cement block building. For those who have been able to walk through it, you'll see it's very rigid inside. We have had some minor renovations over the years, but it's a lot of creative work to sort of carve out spaces when you're working with cement block walls. And for example, a lot of the upgrades we've made as far as introducing technology into the building, we've had to run conduit outside of the brick walls. So you'll see a number of those metal conduits that are housing infrastructure for IT expansion pieces. From a parking perspective, I know it's outside the building scheme, but currently we actually rent space or use space over at the YMCA just because of the limitations on parking for our staff just on a day-to-day operations. Making sure that we leave parking spaces available for the public. We don't want to occupy or take up all of those parking spaces. We want to make sure that if someone's coming to see us and talk to us, that they have a spot to park. So again, we do have a sort of I'll call it a gentleman's agreement with the YMCA that we use some of that space. This idea of a increase or an add-on to the building really has been something that's been churning for, I would say, 5 or 6 years. And pointing behind me to the director of finance, we had these discussions probably 5, 6 years ago about how do we plan, both as far as introducing the concept, but probably even more importantly, how do we start to save and plan financially for such a build. Luckily we've been able to create that capital reserve. We've had some benefits of some operating surpluses, and we feel that we have gotten to a point where we have enough sort of padded in or built into those capital reserves that we can use that as sort of a launch point to help fund this. We also realize that as the community has grown over the last number of years, and quite substantially over the last 2 or 3 years, we also see this as a growth-related addition to the building, and perhaps an opportunity to tap into development charge funding as well, in a more global picture of helping to finance this increase or add to the existing site. One other comment I just wanted to really quickly make in relation to the training space, and certainly the deputy is more aware of this than I am, since he has more of a hands-on with our annual training and training that we undertake year over year. Currently, a lot of our staff are going off-site for training, whether that's off-site within the municipality, or sometimes it's even outside the municipality. Sarnia, London, as 2 examples of places we go to conduct some of our annual use of force training. This allows or provides us an opportunity to actually keep that staff on site and have more effective and efficient training pieces as well. So I just wanted to sort of overlay some of those things to the board, but certainly Mike's done an excellent job of sort of identifying the journey so far. But again, I think between the 2 of us or the 3 of us, we'll certainly be able to maybe address some of the questions that the group may have.
We certainly appreciate the rationales that are attached to the proposed design. Member Wiersma.
Yeah, we've never had the indoor parking before. Give me a good rationale for indoor parking, because it's going to be quite an expensive addition. Now, if you're going to tell me that future expansion would mean that we could turn that all into more working space, I could buy it. But we've never had an outdoor or indoor parking. Why indoor parking now?
So through the chair to Member Wiersma, so currently we're the only 24/7 emergency service provider in the community. I can easily say in the wintertime, we have lots of sort of circumstances where because of the environment and the weather, our uniform fleet is parked outside. At a moment's notice, we were required to respond to an emergency. If our vehicles are covered or frozen because of the elements, it sort of affects some of our response time, our ability to respond in a timely fashion. I would even argue that even in the summer, some of those same environmental concerns occur in a different way, in that you get into some of the extreme weather, whether it's rain or through, say, some of the very hot, humid, extremely hot days. Currently, some of our vehicles are actually left running to remain somewhat temperate, so that when our staff get into them, they're able to continue on to those calls for service. From a security perspective, our vehicles, all of our members take out C8 rifles that are secured in the vehicles. But as they're parked outside, and our member is perhaps inside doing further follow-up or investigative work, those vehicles sit somewhat exposed, unattended, in an open parking lot. So those are some of my initial rationale, and Mike may have some additional comments.
Yeah, so I definitely miscolored this, because that should be a fourth color that I haven't put on the drawing yet. The square footage cost for the yellow spaces, the program addition spaces, is not the same square footage cost as the indoor parking garage. There'd be two different as well, which we would see in the costing as well. Yeah, and they're not apples to apples, because that's a simpler open floor plate. Like, it doesn't have all the complexities of and the tech that would be inside of the addition itself.
Yeah, I think we understand that we're at a high level. It's early days and we're looking conceptual, and that there's going to be a process whereby different iterations are going to have increased detail and more accurate costing. Any other questions? Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, I apologize, but just one piece that may help the rationale. This is pre-amalgamation, correct? The building is pre-amalgamation before Caradoc became part of Strat, correct? So you weren't policing the old Caradoc Township when this building was built, correct?
So through the chair to the mayor, I believe it was around the same time. I think the previous police building, for those on the board who weren't familiar where it was, if we walked out to the front door and looked down and saw where the current marijuana place is, it used to be a CIBC branch. I have to look to my left, he's the most senior Strathroy resident present here. So as the amalgamation was occurring, the police service was growing in staff numbers. The concept became that building certainly wasn't going to be efficient or effective. So the building was built. When we moved in May of '99, the amalgamation hadn't officially been signed, but we were policing Caradoc at the time.
Member Hall?
Thank you. I did have a few, but your presentation was so good and it answered most of them. The only one left over was, obviously when we're designing this, it's not just to meet the needs for what we have right now. What's kind of our projected lifespan for the addition, and how many years into the future is this supposed to serve the needs?
Do you want to talk about growth of staff, or to start?
Certainly. So through the chair to member. So as the community continues to grow, both in population and density, we are looking to implement a staff-related growth that is measured and deliberate based on data. So we are looking to probably see an expansion over, if I use 5 or 10 year windows, probably an additional 2 to 3 members over a 5-year period, and maybe another 6 to 7 over a 10-year period. This addition helps with some of that growth, but it also assists us in capturing or catching up to the growth that has occurred in our existing footprint. And I'll use the locker rooms as an example, where we have an overall staff complement of about 52 members. between our uniform and our non-uniform staff. Almost half of our staff are female staff members. So the space of the locker room space is probably about 2/3 to 1/3 as far as size. So we've had to make some minor renovations, even just in the female locker room, to accommodate that growth in or our current staffing. So yeah, some of it is meant to capture some of the future growth, but some of it is meant to retrofit or refit what our current staffing numbers look like as well.
Thank you for that.
And I'm sorry, I didn't know, Mike, if you had any.
No, I think because it's more numbers based, I think, yeah, that's good.
And I think I said it's aspirational 2050, 2060. Hopefully we're good till then. But you get 25 to 30 years out of a building, you're doing pretty well nowadays.
We can do better than that.
I hope so, but I mean, you know,
20 years is ridiculous.
Always,
Yeah.
I know, we want to under promise and over deliver. Yes, Member Hahn.
Thank you, Chair. And my question was very similar to Matt's, the number of years for future growth. And in that regard too, will it take into account potential future amalgamations? I know that there's always discussions about, you know, amalgamating with another, let's say, Adelaide Township. And would it also take into account, which could be sooner than later, maybe currently our police association, the IT, the finance, and the HR are done out of the municipality. If that was changed, would that also, that expansion, provide room for it going in-house back to what many other police associations operate as?
So again, I'll take that question through the chair to Member Hahn. So in the existing footprint, I know that Mike talked on a little bit of the repurposing, I'll say, of some of that space. If you can just maybe expand the current officer work area in the
middle?
The bridge, yes, right in there. So in that space itself, that is the current space where the officers do their work inside the building. In our early discussions, we've seen that as a potential space for an IT clerk to be working in. We also currently have room in our building that we are renting out to probation. We also have victim services that use the space. And so we would be looking at repurposing some additional spaces in the current footprint to make available for growth for even our probation friends, or as you've inquired, potentially IT or HR staff if they were to need some additional spaces. So as we repurpose the existing footprint, I think that we have the ability to find some of those spaces.
Thank you for that, Chief. And Member Hahn again, yes?
I had a second question also, and I was commenting or going further from your comment about the number of female staff you have. And I was looking at specifically the communication room, which is at a far corner, upper far corner, and primarily female staff operate out of that area. And I just, maybe you can just bring forward some comments about safety in that area, especially during a night shift. I know it's secure going into the building, but I'm talking about activity within the building and the night shift. I don't know how many people are in a building at one time during a night shift.
So through the chair to Member Hahn, so obviously security of the building is paramount, not only in our existing structure, but any additions that we look to undertake. So through the use of camera systems, increased lighting, and I think that Mike and his team certainly are looking to propose some of those elements in any build that we look at. I think that the initial concept where staff parking is all on the, I'll call it the south side of the building, it seems very inviting, very secure looking, getting them into the interior of the building. So I think those two elements, the camera and the lighting piece, provide us a great opportunity to make it feel as a safe and secure facility for our staff members to work in. You know, as a sort of a secondary answer to this, under our current facility, we removed a bunch of low-hanging shrubbery and trees already on the north side of the property to create a better sort of perspective and view, so that there wasn't this overgrowth of trees and stuff. Again, because as you look from the north side of the building out towards the former Bella Street Park, it had become quite overgrown. And yes, we do have exterior cameras already, but some of those areas seem to be somewhat less than full coverage of the area. So, you know, we could certainly introduce even further elements of security cameras to allow our staff to have a fairly good perspective of the building exterior-wise.
Could you maybe let me know how many people are on a night shift? That's what I was specifically wondering. And like, are there very many people in the building on a night shift? And what does that look like for the females in the communication room?
Certainly. So again, through the chair to Member Hahn. So through the collective agreement, there are at minimum 2 communicators on staff at all times. So that would encompass a night shift. We have uniformed staff members that are also at work, not always in the building, but certainly have the ability to return to the building if required. There's a real reliance, I'll say, on our exterior camera system to allow our staff that are in the communications center to have the ability to monitor what is or who might be outside of our premises at certain times of the night. One area that we haven't really explored is, and as I sit here today answering this question, I'm not really in favor of creating some sort of fenced compound, because I don't think that provides or sends an appropriate message to our community. I want our building to be as welcoming and accommodating as it can be, but you raised some important questions about how do we ensure that our staff feel safe and secure, especially when they are working after hours and at night. I think that, again, through the use of technologies, that gives us a fairly good start on providing that security for our members.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much for today's presentation. I know we'll be revisiting this in the future, no doubt, as we progress. But I'd like to thank Mr. Holt for his detailed presentation. And I think I'd ask for a motion to accept for information today's presentation. Member Hall, and seconded by Member Hahn. Now, all those in favor? Thank you very much. And thank you again, Mr. Holt. I appreciate all the detail and the rationales that were provided. An exciting project. At this point, we'll move on to 4.2, the 2023 traffic safety presentation, and I'd ask the chief to perhaps introduce our presenters.
Thank you, Chair. So I'm going to introduce Constable Joel Pinkham. I believe Joel's going to come over and stand to my right. We're actually going to sort of put this presentation together. This is a presentation, some of which I presented at a Middlesex County Council meeting sometime, I guess in the springtime, I think it was. So there's some elements of the presentation, so I'll sort of tee it up, and then Constable Pinkham will talk about some of the other elements of the traffic safety. I don't believe he's here for a speaking part, but Sergeant Jay Cartwright is also in attendance. So Sergeant Cartwright has oversight of Constable Pinkham and Constable Chris Sarr, who are the 2 members of our traffic enforcement unit. So Joel, welcome, and I'll sort of tee up here.
Thank you, members of the board, thank you. I'm familiar with some of you, others.
So I'm not sure, is there a mic is that on the hot mic?
Shows this, I'm just too tall.
Okay, thanks, Joel. So if it's possible, if the presentation can be pulled up. Thank you very much. So I'm just going to spend a couple of minutes just kind of highlighting some of the traffic safety and our road safety strategies for the service. So this is a presentation that was sort of born out of a request from last month's meeting, where there was some further data and analysis of that data to be brought forward to the board to highlight some of the areas that the service is undertaking to certainly enhance and provide some background on how we are planning for and providing some traffic safety services for the community. So I want to start real quickly just to sort of in a background form highlight some of the areas where we are given direction as a police service to provide certain types of services. And so some of those areas come from the Police Services Act, the 2021 Middlesex Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan, and certainly the Strathroy-Caradoc Police Service Strategic and Business Plans. So I'm gonna kind of highlight or provide a summary of the first two. So certainly under the Police Services Act, there are certain functions that police services have a legislative authority or requirement to provide. Every municipality to which this subsection applies shall provide adequate and effective policing services in accordance with its needs. Adequate and effective police services must include, at a minimum, all of the following police services. And there's there's five, being crime prevention, law enforcement, assistance to victims of crime, public order maintenance, and emergency response. So certainly number two, and sorry, I've jumped to the next slide. Law enforcement certainly highlights one of the elements of what traffic safety and our response to the community about how do we enhance our traffic both enforcement and education programs. Jumping to the next slide, the Middlesex Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan, which ran from 2021 to 2026. Again, through the new Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan, that is replacing the Police Services Act, probably in the spring of 2024. made it a requirement that every community was to engage and provide a community safety and well-being plan. At the time, the board had decided that they would partner with other lower tier municipalities in Middlesex County, along with staff from Middlesex County, to sort of work under a common umbrella as a group to develop a community safety and well-being plan. Certainly one of the touch points on that well-being plan was about transportation and traffic safety. So in one of the slides, you'll see under the plan and the exercise that was undertaken to develop this plan, what did they hear about transportation? And there's a couple of points in here. I just wanted to mention that rural residents must travel longer distances than their urban counterparts in order to access work and equivalent services, and low population densities often mean that some services are not available locally, and rural residents need to travel to larger centers to access these services. So broken down is, living in rural areas, we often have to travel long distances to get to places, to get services, and to do various activities. Bullet point number 3, of the people who work in Middlesex County, 73.5% are traveling outside of their municipality for work. And I think that speaks very true for certainly Strathroy-Caradoc, in that we have a large infrastructure of industrial services and other corporate type entities, where a lot of those people who are working in Strathroy-Caradoc are not residents of Strathroy-Caradoc. And vice versa, I think there's a lot of residents from Strathroy-Caradoc who are traveling outside of our community to go to work. Another element of the community safety and well-being plan on the next slide talks about what was the focus in the area about transportation. And it's highlighted there in bullet point number 3. Road infrastructure is safe and well maintained. That was a goal that the plan was hoping to identify. Part of the rationale for that is that individuals feel safe on the roadway they are using. The continuance to replace traffic signal lights, ensure road design features enhanced traffic safety, and develop and implement a road maintenance schedule, and decrease the number of traffic accidents. So one of the, I'll say, takeaways about some of the goals of the community safety and well-being plan is that it wasn't just a police-specific initiative. So a couple of these elements fall within the realm of the traffic and the road area for the municipality. And I know that Director Strauss and members of the traffic committee that operate here in the municipality have had a real focus on what are some of the road design and traffic calming elements that we can introduce to try to meet some of the goals of the community safety and well-being plan. So another element of the community safety and well-being plan was about public safety. In the next slide, respondents to the general public survey rated criminal activity as a high priority for the community safety and well-being. Talking about what was important to them. But they also identified that crime data shows an overall increase in the total number of incidents reported both to the Middlesex OPP and to us. And certainly the top 5 offenses that they found concerning, including person crimes, property crimes, but you'll see that the last one listed there was impaired driving and alcohol offenses. So that is very much front and center on the minds of a lot of the respondents, not only in Strathroy-Caradoc, but in Middlesex County. And then the last element of the community safety and well-being plan, again, what was a goal, is to increase public safety. And one of the objectives to try to meet that goal was the expansion and promotion in the use of technologies as part of the road safety program. And so certainly, and I'll touch a little bit on this in a further slide, but certainly utilizing technology has been a very strong and strategic priority for us as a service. And again, with the support of the board, providing us access to automated license plate readers, access to the Axon dash mounted cameras, expanding our use of traffic signs and radar signs to help educate our community members about certain areas in our community that we have lots of complaints in. We've sort of adopted that this is an important area to help address some of those concerns. And then certainly goal number 2, increase the capacity of police officers to respond to public safety issues. One of those areas, and again, I'll touch on it in a little bit, is making it easier for the public to not only report concerns, but also get feedback on what actions have been taken. So if we could jump to the next slide. Again, just for the board's sort of recognition and anyone watching online, this is an organization chart that is current, and under support services you'll see and you'll hear from Constable Pinkham. He's one of 2 members we have dedicated to traffic enforcement, highlighting again the importance that we see and the impact that we know that those officers have on a day-to-day basis in providing traffic enforcement in our community on high complaint areas, and also tackling areas that sometimes are not those high priority areas, but are areas that we see and want to ensure that there is compliance with speed, so that we don't see any unnecessary tragedies in our community. So the next slide, and I'm going to maybe let Constable Pinkham just speak a little bit about his experience as a frontline responder and the availability of some of the technologies that are available to him.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for having me. So I guess I'll first start with the technology section. As a traffic officer and even a road officer, we have radar, LiDAR, which is a different form of speed detection, and we also have moving radar in most of our cruisers. Now, when you're out on the road using those, you have to get trained to use them, and then you go out and you do enforcement as a road officer when you have time between calls. As a dedicated traffic officer, we now have 2 of us. We can go to those areas where an officer may not be. Your Melbourne, there's a lot of times there's not calls, officers are busy in other areas. We can go to your subdivisions where there's a complaint of, the speeder at 4 p.m. The new crosswalk down in London. That is an area that most police, road people go to because it's very busy and people generally are fairly fast. We have the ability to go all the time and sit there on those chronic speed, those times when other officers may be busy, middle of the afternoon, that's 3:30 to 4 p.m. That's a busy time for the road traffic. We're dedicated to that. We can go and address those issues. The body cameras, excellent. When I get out at a traffic stop, someone doesn't have a front plate, they have a plate cover, their window tint's too dark, identity, because that's a big key when you're writing a ticket, who's the driver, it's all caught on body camera. How do you fight that ticket, wasting our officers' time in court? The defense sees the body camera, how do you defend there's no front plate, there's a plate cover, the tint's too dark? In-car camera, officer safety issue. It's right there. If I get in, someone takes off, something happens to me, it's right on the dash cam. It's safe. Even if I'm at a stop sign violation where we have a complaint, as soon as I activate my emergency lights, it automatically goes back 30 seconds. So if I'm facing the stop sign, it'll show the car roll through, I can pull up behind it, perfect for evidence. Now it's not just my word, there's video evidence of those offenses. What else did you mention there, Chief, technology-wise, things like that?
Yes, both the ALPR and the speed signs and
right. So the ALPR is an amazing tool. You drive by, your license plate's expired, which right now probably 50% of the cars we drive by they are. tells you unattached plate, stolen vehicle, suspended driver, unlicensed driver, party of the register or of the car is a wanted party. All of that will come up instantly on the computer in car, which is, again, we've had it for a long time, but another great tool that we use. Allows us to get out of the office and do a lot of our own investigative work. But that ALPR is a great tool for not just traffic enforcement, general road safety for, like I said, wanted parties, stolen vehicles. It's a great crime prevention and crime reduction tool as well. Speed signs. Right now we're limited to one speed sign because we're having one being repaired. I know there's, again, I'll go back to the Glendon because that seems to be the hot spot right now. The reduction of traffic coming in towards westbound, coming in, because this right now the sign flashes as you're westbound coming in by the Ford dealership on Glendon Drive into Mount Bridges. There's been a huge reduction in speed coming into town because that flashes and people go, yeah, I am going too fast. And then they can slow down. So it's a great reminder to people that, because we've all done it, you go and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm doing 70 and a 50. We're all guilty of it, right? It's just that little bit of inattention as you're thinking about something in a conversation in the car. Most people don't mean to do it. Some do, don't get me wrong, but most people don't mean to. It's just that little bit of inattention, and that flashing right in your face reminds people. So it's a very good tool to remind people to slow down. Plus it captures data. So if we get a chronic complaint for Queen Street, Head Street, Metcalf Street, we're able to allocate those signs to those places, track for a week, 2 weeks, a month, get that data and analyze it to see, is it a real problem or is it one or two instances that stand out? And time of day, it's a very good tool. And again, he mentioned Mr. Strauss at Town Hall. We share all that data with them, and then they can analyze it as well for their road improvements or strategies to try and slow traffic down or traffic calming measures.
Thanks, Joel. So I'm just going to introduce in the next set of slides. This is some of our data, traffic enforcement data. It's kind of spread between 2021 and 2022. And then a subsequent slide is January to September of 2023. So I'm just going to, if you can go back to the very first graph, I believe it's the 2021, yes, thank you. So this was broken down by month, and it identified Zone 1, Zone 2 speeding. It also identified what we refer to as Zone 1 HTA other and Zone 2 HTA other. So a description of Zone 1 is Strathroy proper. Zone 2 would be any area outside of Strathroy proper. So the villages of Mount Bridges, the village of Melbourne, Campbellvale, Delaware West, and all points in between. So really what the data is showing you in 2021 is that 861 speeding tickets were written in 2021 in Zone 2 compared to 258 in Zone 1. When you look at the HTA other, so that may include document offenses, it may include rolling stop sign offenses, it may include turning violations, that sort of offenses. The opposite is true. More of the tickets are written in Zone 1, 124, compared to 62 in Zone 2. If I look at the next graph, which is the 2022, you'll see that the numbers tend to sort of replicate themselves again. So in 2022, there was 870 speeding tickets written in Zone 2 compared to only 223 in Zone 1. And again, when you look at the other offenses, again, it's very similar to what you saw in 2021, where more of the offenses are occurring in Strathroy or Zone 1. When I go down to the third graph, this is the one that represents January to September 2023 data. So you'll see, and this is a breakdown of all offenses, not just speeding, that 810 of our just over 1,200 tickets written so far in 2023 were written in Zone 2. Again, that's very similar to what you saw in 2021 and 2022. The next graph is a breakdown again of that January to September 2023 data. And what we did is we sort of cleaned the data to pull up specific chronic speeding areas. And so Glendon Drive, Longwoods Road, Adelaide Road, Parkhouse Drive, Head Street, Carroll Street, and Melbourne Road. Those 7 roads are by far the most impacted roads where we are doing enforcement. So you'll see that Glendon Drive, there were 234 tickets written that involved someone traveling on Glendon Drive. On Longwoods Road, there was 137, Adelaide Road 135, Parkhouse 30, 56 for Head Street, 119 for Carroll Street, and 53 for Melbourne Road. The ones in Strathroy, obviously, Head Street is a fairly busy north-south artery. Carroll Street, I would reference it as almost a ring road, and a majority of those will be Carroll Street East. So traveling from Caradoc over towards McAvoy Road. Our concern and our attention in Zone 2 certainly is Glendon Drive. And it's well documented. We've had lots of complaints, certainly more recently, about concerns about the new crosswalk at Bond Street. But even before the arrival of the crosswalk, I can clearly articulate that there was a lot of enforcement occurring in the area of Glendon Bond, Glendon Emerson, and Glendon and Thompson, as well as the intersection west of Glendon and Adelaide. And I'll perhaps let Constable Pinkham sort of just expand on some of those areas in Zone 2 and how they've sort of become the areas of stricter enforcement.
So what we've noticed as officers is that the population here is growing, and not just Strathroy-Caradoc, Mount Bridges, Glencoe, all those little communities have a growing population. Where do they all go? London, or most of them go to London, back and forth to work. As the chief had, from the presentation, 73.5% of people commute outside their jurisdiction for work. Most of our high volume roads outside of Strathroy are 90 kilometers. What don't people do when they come to Bridges, Melbourne, Campbellvale? They don't slow down, right? So our job and what we've noticed is to focus on those areas and make sure people know you have to slow down coming through the small communities. Where is an accident? Where are you going to hit a child? Someone darting out from a house in a small community, and you're going too fast and you don't have the time to stop. As the chief mentioned, west, there's the new subdivision off Ruffin Road, plus there's a new subdivision, the street is called Wallace. It's going to be a bunch of new townhomes in Mount Bridges. Nobody even knows it's a street yet. And it's a perfect spot because most people go in or out of Mount Bridges. It goes from a 90 to a 70, and there's lots of room to slow down. People don't. People step on the gas, and they think they're going to a 90 well within the 50. So we, as a small service, we know those areas. We travel them every day, but we can target them, knowing, especially the time of day, knowing when people are going to be high volume areas, and when most people are going to be out. You see people waving. People thank me for doing radar. They're like, thank you for being here. Thank you for being. That's in a small service. That's a great thing. We're part of the community. We're not just a number, and we're appreciated by the community.
Thanks, Joel. And this, sort of the last slide I'm just going to touch on talks about traffic media and messaging. So one of the things that I think was discussed at the last board meeting was wanting to have an understanding of what does our data look like, what does our enforcement numbers look like, where are they occurring. And I hope that this has helped sort of provide at least the board with a bit of a perspective of where our attention has been focused on and why it's been focused in that area. One area that I want to continue to expand is our ability to tell that message, not only to the board, but to our community members. And so we want to be able to expand our messaging to the community to let them know this is what our data is so far. This is what we are experiencing. And this is where our resources are going to be focusing their traffic enforcement and traffic education initiatives on. So we want to utilize some of the tools that we have available to us, social media platforms, traditional media, some of the campaigns that we operate, and just make sure that we have a direct link and a direct line to our community members so that not only do they see our members on the side of the road doing a traffic stop, but we're also sharing that information through the various channels we have so that they understand, and it kind of completes the loop as far as understanding why we are doing what we're doing, where we're doing it, and why we're doing it. So I'll maybe leave it at that, and then certainly take any questions from the board, either to myself or possible Pinkham.
Thank you for that, and I believe the mayor has a question.
Yeah, I have a two-part. We're gonna, before I really want to talk about, just a question about the stats. I know someone in the community is going to twig to this. When I look at the stats year over year, the tickets are greater during the summer, and when you look at starting in September, when school starts, that's where I'm going. I know someone is going to ask me, why is activity less during school year, or it's higher during the summer? I know there's an answer. I just wonder if you could, because I do anticipate the question, because I am going to share this, Chief, but I'm just anticipating the question.
I'll maybe defer to Councilman Pinkham.
So from my experience, the summer months, people are on vacation. I would say there's less vehicles on the road. So during the school months, you have more people to school, you have more school buses out, especially the high volume times. That does have a propensity, the more traffic, the slower it has to go. So if you have an open road, it's much easier to push your car up to 120, 130. If there's a bunch of traffic, it's much harder to get going that speed. If you, for that example, even in town, if there's 15 cars in a row on Head Street, you can't do 65. When you're the only car in Head Street, it's much easier to get 65 or 70. So my experience is that in the summer, there's a little bit less. Teachers are on holidays, parents are on holidays, kids are off school, there's no school buses out. It's much easier to get that speed built up with a less volume of traffic, if that makes sense.
No. So it's not a question of enforcement.
No.
It's just a question of...
Sorry, just to expand on that, not to interrupt. In the winter months, because the conditions, most people do drive properly in the winter. So the enforcement is harder because there's not as many, for lack of a better term, bad drivers driving at a high rate of speed, because most people do know to slow down. So we still target it, it just becomes a matter of there's not as many. So that would be, from my perspective, having done this for several years, that would be my perspective of why that is.
Okay, thank you. And then the one I most importantly want to talk about, and Chief, I won't use a golf analogy, I'll use a hockey analogy. I appreciate the tape-to-tape pass on this one, because when I looked at it, the presentation, you had broached the subject that I had wanted to bring up for some time, and the expand and promote the use of technologies as part of the road safety program, and you would expect someone like me going to espouse what I'm going to bring up, but more and more I'm hearing from the public talking about photo radar, and I've been contemplating bringing it up in the right forum. So what I'm seeking today is just some input, and possibly from yourself and from the chair, as to what is the proper forum to discuss photo radar. What kind of reporting do we need? I've done my own little research. I know it's in community safety zones, but I will tell you, and I was been quite surprised by members of our community asking for photo radar. So, you know, when the community gives us a pass right on our stick, we need to take a shot at the open net. So I'm just here asking for guidance on how do we approach this.
So through the chair to the mayor, and I'm interested to hear, and I think it's a great interest that the community is seeing photo radar as yet another effective way to help reduce speeding on our roadways and certainly reducing the impact of traffic safety, or increasing traffic safety, sorry. A couple elements about photo radar, and you mentioned briefly that there's two areas that a community has to designate. One is a community safety zone or a school zone. Currently under the legislation, those are the two areas that you are permitted to have photo radar in. So that is a step that at the council level, I believe, they would have to embark on and identify what areas in their community they want identified as a community safety zone and or a school zone. I would suggest that the traffic committee that is engaged here locally perhaps be tasked by council to embark on an investigative inquiry as to what would be required to move in that direction. One area I will sort of just, and it's not to scare either the board or potentially council away from this, is the administrative side of photo radar. So you can put up cameras and you can capture the data, but then you have the processing of the tickets. And where are you going to go? Currently, I believe the City of Toronto does it. I believe the City of Ottawa does it. Are two municipalities I'm familiar with that actually have processing centers. So as a municipality embarking on this journey, who are you going to engage? Who are you going to have provide that service as far as processing of your tickets? What does that contract or business relationship look like? And what potential financial impact will that have on your community in implementing and then running such a program? Some early sort of talking points, but certainly an area that can be explored and a report brought back to the right body at this, whether again it's the board or the municipal council who wants to then sort of make that final decision.
Thank you for that. I'm aware of the administrative, there's hurdles, but I should also note found out I'm a member of the traffic committee too, so I look forward to attending those meetings. But I will tell you in Alberta, and they use photo radar very effectively. You talked to my son-in-law about that, but we will discuss. We just want to start. We need to have a more fulsome discussion on it because you can only police so long. You know, you can't sit there 24/7 and ticket people. And I am aware, I think you said 73% Glencoe, you know, people coming from outside of our community, social media is not going to get them. So just want to introduce it in front of the board that somehow, some way, I'm going to bring forward the concept of photo radar in front of council.
And again, just through the board to the chair to the mayor. Again, as a service, you know, we would certainly welcome the arrival of photo radar as yet another effective tool in providing greater enhanced traffic safety.
Thank you very much. Interesting discussion. Of course, the budgetary considerations have to be looked at before any firm decisions are made. But I echo the mayor in that we have heard, or I have heard also from many that the time for selective use of photo radar in some areas of town might have a beneficial effect and increase safety, especially in areas of school crosswalks. But again, awaiting a report, looking at costing of administration, I think would certainly be necessary for council or this board to make any decisions. Member Han?
I also support that, and the statistics that you brought forward on Head Street, where North Meadows School is, would be a prime example, especially since there was just in the 8 months, 56 speeding tickets on that area. I have a second question, and I'll address it to Constable Pinkham. And I know that you're talking about other safety opportunities to slow down traffic, and I'm thinking of stop signs and people going through rolling stop signs, and often they already have a speed going there and they're pretty well going on. I know I came back just this past weekend from Grand Rapids, and they seem to be using on the stop signs, I think they're all octagon, maybe I'm wrong, but on the perimeters, especially in the evening, it just lights right up. Do we have them in our municipality? Is that something that is potentially good to look at? And I have no idea on the cost, but apparently they use them, especially in rural areas, that you come up, you know, those intersections where you do get crashes more frequently because people aren't realizing there's a stop sign coming up.
In terms of that I don't know. I've never seen, what I have seen on my drive to work, I see there's a stop sign that has a red flashing light on top, sort of to warn you that it's coming. But in terms of flashing, other than that, I've never seen one. That would maybe more directed to the road safety committee, because they have all, we don't, as a police road council, I don't have any authority or say in that signage. I know the signs have to be a certain diameter and color and that, but other than that, I don't know. Maybe the chief has an answer for that.
Yeah, just to sort of add on to that response, and again through the chair to Member Han, there is some requirements or regulations. I believe it's book 7 or book 5 that helps and assists in identifying what is an acceptable standard as far as a stop sign and other traffic safety assets. So we would maybe have to explore that with or through the director of the roads department to ensure that what is being suggested or recommended sort of meets that compliance piece, that we're not bringing in something that you know, sits outside of what is an accepted sort of sign.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions on the presentation? Member Hall?
Thanks. First one, just a thank you to Constable Pinkham and the chief for that presentation. I know we asked last time for a bit of a breakdown on where the worst infractions were, and that you guys did a really good job of kind of showing where the biggest violators are. My thing, I'm always kind of looking in the future, see where things are going. What either for Constable Pinkham or the chief can answer, kind of what's your, you know, your vision for the future of the traffic department, and where, you know, kind of a wish list or wants, or going forward, how would you like to see the department grow, or kind of what the future of the committee is?
So through the chair to Member Hall, so certainly, and you've heard me say this numerous times, traffic complaints is by far the most common concern that we get from our community members. So that will always be, if not our top priority, one of our first priorities to ensure that we are providing the highest level of traffic enforcement and education that we can to ensure that our roads are safe. An easy answer would be for me to say, well, I'd like to expand my traffic unit to a 3rd member, to expand coverage from early in the morning, so catching those commuters running late, heading to work, and expanding my hours to capture those commuters coming home who are in a hurry to get home to engage in other activities. Right now, you know, we have fairly decent coverage. Both traffic members have worked or are working schedules where we're trying to maximize as much time where they're not sort of working at the same time, again, to expand our coverage. But as we continue to expand and grow as a service, the expansion of the traffic enforcement unit will be one of our first areas that we will look to expand. As we say, or as Constable Pinkham has highlighted, we've certainly invested in our fleet to ensure that there is as many moving radars available for all of our uniform vehicles. So it doesn't matter whether you're in this car today or that car tomorrow, there should be the same traffic enforcement tools available for each member. As we sort of look to even grow our uniform division, maybe moving from 5 to 6 members, maybe our uniform members find a little more time in their day between calls for service to also engage in traffic enforcement. You know, so that isn't a cost as far as growing the service. It's just because we now have more people working day to day, maybe there's, as I say, more time during their day to engage in the traffic safety.
Okay, thank you. And Member Weirson.
Yes, Chief, I'm curious, on the Middlesex Community Safety Wellbeing Plan, what did we hear about transportation? I'm curious as to what kind of environmental scan was done. How many people are we looking at that responded to giving answers to the questions that you had? Like, for example, the 73.5%. Curious.
So through the chair to Member Wiersma, I'd have to go back to the Community Safety Wellbeing Plan notes. So again, that was a collaboration that was led by Middlesex County that included us and other municipalities from Middlesex County to identify how much input there was across as far as people responding to their surveys. I'd have to try to find that information out if it still exists.
Okay, fine.
Thank you. Any other questions from members? Seeing none, again, thank you very much, Officer Pinkham and Chief, for the presentation. And with no further comments, I'd be looking for this recommendation that the board receive report POL 2023-12 for information. The Mayor, Councillor Hall, all those in favor? And that is passed. And we'll now move on to number 5, the reading and correction and approval of minutes. And those are the general meeting minutes of September 19th, 2023. The recommendation is the minutes of September 19th, 2023 general meeting of the Strathroy-Caradoc Police Service Board be approved as written. Do we have a mover? Member Wiersma, second by Member Hall. All those in favor? Thank you very much. That is passed. Number 6, communications. And the recommendation, which I'll read first, is that, and we can pull some out for obviously discussion, the communication of items 6.1 to 6.3 be received for information. Would anyone like to pull any of those out for discussion before we Member on?
Number 6.1.1 and 6.1.2.
Thank you. And Mr. Mayor?
The last one that Member Hall said, so I would like to address that too.
Okay, should I just call for the motion to be approved? Okay, so Member Wiersma?
4.2.
And for 6.1.2?
4.2. Under 4.
Oh, 6.14.
Yeah.
We're not dealing with that one quite yet.
Okay.
The communication item 6.1 to 6.3. So I'd ask for a mover and a seconder that 6.1 to 6.3 be received for information. Member Hall, Member Wiersma, all those in favor? Thank you very much. And then over to Member Hahn, your questions about 6.11.
My question was going to be how many hybrid electric vehicles or completely electric vehicles does the force think that they will be having in let's say 2024?
I got the look, so I'll answer this one through the chair to Member Hahn. For 2024, I don't believe we will have any hybrid or fully electric vehicles at this point.
Do you see this happening in the future, though?
Yeah, at some point we likely will. It just at this point we haven't got to that point. Maybe if we get a new building and we have some plugs in the back, then it might be easier. But at this point we don't.
The reason I'm bringing it forward is the training, and not necessarily that the police would have the vehicles, but they're often going to accidents, motor vehicle incidences that may be now electric. And I was really surprised at some of those, the information that was being brought forward about the batteries and the struck by and the crushing hazard that the car may still be powered on and you never know, or even for the fire that the batteries can be energized or reignited multiple times. And I think of our fellow person Matt Hall too, as they're going to safety concerns. I find this to be quite serious, attending maybe a vehicle accident that might be a hybrid. And so just wondered, for that training aspect, or what your thoughts were, is there a greater safety hazard in going to those incidences?
Through the chair to Member Hahn. So electric vehicles aren't actually a new thing. They've been around for quite a while, so there has been some familiarity with them. Obviously, as there's more and more on the road, we are going to run across it more often. We do have a procedure being drafted right now to address everything that was outlined in this guidance through the Ontario Police Health and Safety Committee. So it will be reviewed by all members to familiarize themselves more with the hazards associated to them. It's another thing that first responders have to deal with on a daily basis when responding to motor vehicle collisions. It's just used to be gas before, and now it's all of the above.
Sorry, if I may just add an additional comment to that. So I know previously we've certainly worked with the Strathroy-Caradoc Fire Department in providing some baseline training on responding to certain types of situations, whether they're motor vehicle collisions or, heaven help us, a train type derailment. And they have certainly been able to help and assist our members in identifying what potential dangers are there, how best to address those without putting themselves in risk. So, those are some discussions that we will continue to have with our friends over at the fire service. Is there training opportunities, joint training opportunities that will allow them to bring in their level of expertise to assist our members in feeling more confident and certainly safe in responding to certain types of issues.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any more comments on 6.11? Let's proceed to 6.12. Member Hahn, you had a question. The mayor had a question.
I'm really pleased to see this, that the review by the Chief Coroner's Police Service on member deaths by suicide. And I know that they were looking at identifying trends, lifestyles, PTSD, mental health situation, commonalities. My question was actually a little bit, or it's a question, but maybe an offshoot of this. I'm very pleased that they're reviewing that. And it related actually to, I was watching the CTV London News last week. I don't know if anyone else was, but it's, I believe it was an officer from the London force that had PTSD and I believe had committed suicide about 2 years ago, and his wife was on there. And what I'm finding is, and I know that also, that the fallout sometime is also about the group life insurance and benefit factor with suicides. And often insurance companies do not cover life insurance, which could be 2 times or 3 times your annual salary, to your designated beneficiary in a time of real need. And I was going to ask, because it's often once an incident has been determined to be due to suicide, it's not covered. And this person, the wife of this London officer who had PTSD, mentioned that the life insurance had still not been paid. And if anyone is familiar with life insurance, it is paid so quickly to the beneficiary of a company or of an association within like 3 or 4 weeks to assist them in their time of need. But obviously the insurance company does it for another reason. They have to start to pay interest on those funds, but also that the health benefits aren't covered. So I would love to know that suicide, a member of our police association, the Strathroy-Caradoc Police Association, if there was a death by suicide, that the group life insurance would be in effect. And I don't know that answer.
Through the chair to Member Hahn, I'm just going to start, and I think Director Payne wants to also jump in on providing some answers here. I did see that story. Actually, I believe it's a member of the London Fire Service.
Oh, I thought it was the police.
Yeah, it was a member of the London Fire Service who, as I understand it, committed suicide while off on a leave from work. And I'm not familiar if it was a WSIB claim or not. And I understand that it's a ongoing sort of dispute between the City of London and the London Professional Fires Association. So that being said, I'm sure there are a lot of details that a lot of us aren't completely familiar with. So with that, I'll maybe let Director Payne finish the rest of the answer.
Great, thank you, Chief. Through the chair to Member Hahn. I can't comment on specifics of the item you mentioned, but I can speak to our policies. So you are correct. Insurance companies, this is standard language in insurance life claim policies, which is at ours or the boards as well. Suicide is not covered through life insurance. So whether these items that are coming up through different associations changes that. But an insurance company, they look for, I don't want to say they look for a way out, but they follow the policy to how it is described. So it is described in our service that suicide is not covered for life insurance. And that is standard language. Whether that changes in the landscape of the world, we'll see. But that is standard language today. So,
Do you feel that this review on member deaths by suicide might lead to some further review of that? I have a sense that with PTSD, well documented, a person is suffering very deeply because of this. To me, it's a work-related, obviously, but that the suicide aspect, I've been reading that they're starting to look at it, that there's some broader discussions on suicide specifically for police associations and other associations that deal with often this type of matter. So I was just bringing it forward, and I think it's good that the board knows that it would not be covered under our life insurance, and even sometimes health benefits are stopped for family members because of this, and that's also quite tragic.
Sorry if I may,
Okay,
Chair,
good.
just add a couple additional comments. I know that the police service member deaths by suicide review, I've seen 2 or 3 presentations on how this has really come to life. 4 or 5 years ago, there were a large number of suicides within the OPP organization. That, along with obviously some other suicide-related deaths from other police services, was really the impetus to a creation of what this new procedure is really looking to accomplish, and that is introducing a formalized investigative team across the province from different, or stationed in different parts of the province, that could be activated anytime there is a suicide by a police officer. The compilation of the investigation team generally is going to fall outside of the organization from which the member belonged to, which would and hopefully allow for a more wholesome and complete investigation, allowing an organization to perhaps get a better understanding of what led to the member committing suicide. And I think that one of the goals for this procedure is to allow and highlight to individual services some things that maybe they weren't seeing or had in place as far as member wellness and helping members obviously avoid getting ever to the point of a suicide. So that is part of the review, part of the introduction of these investigative teams that I see as greatly enhancing the end goal for police services so that they are better situated, again, hopefully to avoid these circumstances from arriving in the first place.
Thank you, and over to the mayor.
Yeah, first of all, I want to thank Member Hahn for bringing that to light. I wasn't aware of that story, so it is troubling. So thank you for bringing that forward. Maureen, I did notice it earlier on the plans for the new build, the mental health room. So some others may not have seen this, but to Member Hall, I had a tour of Middlesex London Paramedic Service, and I know there's a dedicated mental health room. So just that comment that one little room, others may have not seen it, but I did see it, and I linked it back to what's available to you and your service of Middlesex London. So just want to make that comment that I personally realize how important it is. So just a comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. All right then, thank you very much. Let's move on to item 6.14, CSO, Organized Crime Specialized Training Instructors to comment opportunity. And over to, I think it was Member Wiersma wanted to
No,
make.
it's okay.
Oh, you did not wish to speak to that?
No.
Okay, does anybody wish to ask a question on 6.14, seeing it was not included in the previous motion? All right, then at this point, then I guess I would just ask that receive for information. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Member Hahn, the mayor, all those in favor? Thank you. What we'd like to do now is move on to 6.2, resident letter by Rick Wilkin. Do we have any questions regarding that? If not, then I'd ask that be received for information. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Member Hahn, Member Wiersma, all those in favor? Carried. And on to 6.3, the scheduled 2024 Police Service Board meetings. Recommendation the board approve the 2024 scheduled Police Services Board meetings. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Member Wiersma, Member Hahn, all those in favor? Thank you. And at this point, we are going to take a 5-minute or 10-minute break before we go to the review of monthly police service reports. Thank you. Oh, we need a motion to do so. A motion to move Member Hahn, the mayor, all those in favor? Wonderful. See you, Tim.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. Just as a quick note for those of you who may be watching, Chair Brennan had to leave to a prior engagement, so I'm at the helm now. We'll now move on to item 7, review of monthly police service reports. I have a motion to receive the reports, and we'll have the questions. Motion by member Wiersma, second by member Hall. All in favor? Carried. Chief, did you want to go through the reports?
Maybe for the sake of time, just since this meeting is certainly a little bit longer than what we're accustomed to. Before I get started, I just wanted to make a couple of amendments. The first was to the activity report. I believe the correspondence the board members would have got. There's an error in the activity report, Zone 1, 2020 year-to-date. I believe the number you have on your reports is 222, which was incorrect. We've recalculated that. The proper number should be, for 2020, there was 5,380 occurrences, which would have gave a year-to-date total for 2020 of 8,113. So that would have replaced the number 2,841. So that was an error in putting the report together. I wanted to highlight that. There was another minor error in the lost hours in training report. And it was in the bottom half of that document under the WSIB. It had one civilian member transition to maternity leave. That should have read, I get to be updated, it should have said one civilian member remains off on WSIB.
Thank you.
So that, I just wanted to bring those 2 corrections
Yeah, thank you.
to the board's attention. So, other than that, they've all been received for information. I will certainly take any questions in regards to any of the information on any of the reports.
Any questions for the chief on any of the reports? Seeing none, we have a second in motion. All in favor of receiving the reports? Carried. Next item at hand is item 8, items from Chief Campbell. The first is the 2024 fees for services report. Just want to give a brief description of that, Chief, then we'll move on to the receiving the report.
Pardon me here, Chair. Just so I just wanted to highlight this is a annual fee for service process that the municipality goes through. And again, trying to be diligent and responding to the requests that I get from one of the deputy clerks. I wanted to make sure that we got this back in time. So we are not identifying any increases implemented for 2024. In the fees for service report, any of the rates that are captured in that provide full cost recovery for any of the services that we are providing. So I don't see any need to provide any recommendation for any increase to the fees for service.
Thanks. Chief, any questions regarding that item? Seeing none, we have a motion that the board receive report POL-2023-10. Motion to receive. Member Wiersma, second by member Hall. All in favor? Carried. Next is item 8.2, proposed 2024 police services budget, POL-2023-11. Chief, did you want to speak to the item first?
Thank you, Chair. I had spoken to Director Dakin, who I believe is planning to return and join us. Perhaps I could ask a small favor if Director Payne could make a quick reach out. Again, I wanted to ensure that Director Dakin was present to provide any sort of follow-up or clarification to any of the elements on the draft budget for 2024. So with that, maybe we could take a quick pause, or we could, I think there was a, in the reports from the monthly reports, if we could maybe just return to the budget update for September. I don't know if there was any questions, because there was an amended report that I provided to the board this morning.
Yeah. Any questions? I don't, but if anybody else has any questions. No. Seeing none. Seeing none, we give Mr. Dakin. Were there any questions from any of the board prior to, or we feel that the chief could answer?
So if, just before there are any questions maybe posed, I want to advise Member Hahn, Member Hall, and Member Wiersma. So the mayor and the board chair were provided a brief overview of the draft budget. I believe that was probably 2 or 3 weeks ago now.
3 weeks.
And Director Dakin was also provided a chance to sort of review the draft document as well. It's laid out. I can go through some of the various lines. Perhaps maybe I'll just wait for any of you.
Here's Director Dakin.
Thank you, Director, for joining us on such short notice.
Okay, we'll go back.
So I'm just going to go through various lines that I'd identified in the budget where there is what I would refer to as a change of some significance. But I could perhaps maybe just wait for any questions, and because they might be part of where I'm going to go as far as highlighting some of the areas that there's some change.
Sorry, Member Hahn. I was looking at the budget and trying to do both there too.
So in the operating revenue, just so I'm clear, there's 2 secondments for the 2024 budget. Is that correct? There's still a line item for number 162, but that person is off, and there's only, it has 2 badge numbers on the first one, but it's only 1 person. Is that correct?
Yes, so through the chair to Member Hahn, if I sort of describe it in this format, so in 2023, we had 3 members who were seconded to the Ontario Police College. And perhaps it's easier if I use names as opposed to numbers. We had Ann McPherson, who was officer number 155. We had Officer Chris Reeve, who was number 162. And then we have Officer Butler, who her number doesn't appear there, but is 141. Ann McPherson resigned from the service, and so that secondment is on pause. And in 2024, we are looking to make that position available to one of our current members, and I've put that officer's number on the report for the time being. Chris Reeve, officer number 162, resigned from the service as well, and we are not replacing that secondment. Sergeant Butler, who is again officer number 141, will be retiring from the service in July of 2024. So the number that is in that column represents what salary benefit we will be recouping from the college during the time that she is actively employed with the service.
Very good. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Sorry, Chair, if I may,
Yes.
just to highlight the second last revenue area grants, third last area grants, provincial MCRRT /auto. That's actually a combination of 2 grant applications that we made for the 2024 budget cycle. I can announce that we have received 108,000 of that. That's been confirmed already by the ministry, and we're just waiting on the announcement of the remaining funds that I believe are in the neighborhood of $82,000. That would be dedicated to one of our officers' salaries in regards to an auto theft grant application.
I have one question, let's see. And I missed it on the lines, and I did look for it, it may have been in the report. What is the total percentage increase? That's what I was looking for here, Chief, is to what line has the actual percentage increase?
So the percentage increase, and again, this is where I'm sort of relying somewhat on my director friend here, because I think we have 2 different ways of calculating what that percentage increase looks like. If I use the director's formula, the percentage increase in our total operating revenue is 6.58%. The change, the increase in taxation required is 6.67%.
Okay, so that's just, last year it was a 2% increase to tax? I'm just doing this from memory, I was new to the board, but if I recall correctly, there was a 2% increase.
Sorry, I believe that the number last year, if I remember correctly, was 2.7. If I'm given a chance to just quickly pull up.
Well, the chief's looking up the number. We did miss one motion. We did receive the report on the fees for services. The board secretary has asked we bring a motion to accept, correct? To approve the 2024 fees for service. Motion by member Hall, second by member Wiersma. All in favor? Carried. Sorry about that, Chief. I didn't mean to
Yeah, no, sorry.
put you off guard. That wasn't my intention.
Yeah, no, I didn't want to play with any of the numbers on this draft one. So, so on the 2023, I'm going to give you 2 different numbers. So the overall change in revenue was 2.41%. The change in taxation required was 4.55%.
Okay. And this year the proposed is 6.5, correct? Taxation? Okay.
6.67.
6.67. So this is proposed, what are the next steps? Comes back to the board and we look at it? Okay. So this is early days, correct? Or mid-days on the budget?
I would refer to it as middays. This is really, we've applied every sort of look or change that we're looking to apply for the 2024. Again, understanding that this is the initial blush that the board is getting on this. But certainly, again, I'm open to take any questions as we move through the different lines.
Okay. Member Wiersma, then Member Hahn.
You know, Chief, if you could just just explain to me, we got a 6% plus increase. Just explain to me where most of this is coming from.
Chief?
Yep, certainly through the chair to Member Wiersma. A majority of the difference in the revenue accumulation in the budget is the reduction in the Ontario Police College secondments. So that's salary benefit cost recovery we get by eliminating 2 of the positions, or 1.5 of the positions. You're talking a fairly substantial amount of money, close to $200,000 of salary benefits that we're not recouping from the college. The other lines are fairly stagnant as far as what we're projecting for revenues from 2023 going into 2024.
Member Hahn?
And often that line item of the general taxation number is dependent on the expenses. And maybe you could highlight, Mark, just the difference in the full-time police uniform salary expenses, the increase of 8.33%, the numbers of additional people anticipated for the 2024 budget year.
Chief?
Certainly, yeah, through the chair to Member Hahn. So I'm actually going to start at the end and give you the increases in expenses over all of the different areas. Actually, is $560,577. So I'll give you that number again. That's $560,577. Of that amount, $543,938. So $543,938 is increases to both uniform salary benefit lines and civilian salary benefit lines. So the difference of my total increase in expenses of $560,577 minus the increase in, I'll call it staff cost, is $16,640. So of all my expenses, all of it except $16,640 is going towards staffing costs. Specifically to Member Hahn, the increase in the uniform complement, we are seeking to add 2 recruit positions to the organization. One would actually commence in December of 2023, and that's due to the reconfiguration of the recruit classes at the Ontario Police College. The second recruit position, we've tentatively sort of marked that for April or May of 2024. It does give us some flexibility to push that higher, deeper into the budget year, perhaps into July, August, September, which obviously reduces that salary benefit impact to the 2024 operating budget. On the civilian side, just to provide some clarity or explanation to the changes here, you'll see in the 2023 budget, the full-time salary line was $678,269. The part-time salary number was $355,457. In the 2024 budget year, we've actually re-injected the civilian supervisor salary wage back into the proper line. Last year it had been bumped down into the part-time line. We've moved it back into the full-time line where it actually should reside. The other slight increase to that number is seeking a internal IT position for the service. That a majority of that salary comes from the second clerk position that had been approved in 2023 that we never filled due to some accommodations that we were utilizing with some uniform staff unavailable for frontline policing. There's been a small top-up to that clerk salary piece in anticipation that a IT position would be somewhat higher than what we had budgeted for a clerk position. Those are really the main differences as far as salary numbers. Of course, in both the uniform and the civilian, there is an increase in the benefit costs, which again, just based on the percentage change in the collective agreement and what that projects further out in regards to increase in benefit costs.
Any other questions? Okay, just my comment, Chief, I appreciate your and your staff's efforts on the budget. I'll put both hats on, but we hear from the community they want excellent policing. In order to get excellent policing, sometimes you have to pay for it, and it's good explanation that a lot of the increases are due to salaries and adding staff, so I support the budget, and I will do so. And without any other questions, we'll move to the motions. There are two, that the board receive report POL-2023-11 for information, and further, that the board approve the proposed 2024 police services budget. Someone to make the motion. Member Hans, second by Member Hall. All in favor? Carried. Are there any inquiries or comments by members? Seeing none, the board may move into a closed session to discuss labor relations matters regarding collective bargaining agreements, a legal matter regarding a claim, and a procedural matter to approve in-camera meeting minutes as permitted by Section 239 of the Ontario Municipal Act, Section 35 for the Police Services Act, and Council's Procedure Bylaw. I have a motion that the board move into closed session at 12:35 p.m. Member Wiersma, second by Member Hall. All in favor? Carried. Welcome back. We have a motion that closed session adjourn at 12:50 and open session resume. Someone to bring a motion. Member Hall, second by Member Wiersma. All in favor? Carried. Need a motion of the direction and closed, report on closed session, okay? The board moved into closed session to discuss labor relations matters regarding collective bargaining agreements, a legal matter regarding a claim, and a procedural matter to approve in-camera meeting minutes as permitted by Section 239 of the Ontario Municipal Act and Section 35(4) of the Police Services Act and Council's Procedure Bylaw. Motion to move back into open session. Member Wiersma, second by Member Hall, all in favor? Carried. The next meeting of the Police Services Board will be held Tuesday, November 21st, 2023 at 10 a.m. Motion to adjourn. Member Hall, second by Member Hahn, all in favor? Carried.
Question. I will not be here on the 21st of November.
Okay.
I'll be in the air.